let's talk about the center line. In the previous video, I mentioned how when Tai Chi wrestling basically is stand up. We're staying vertical. We're not going for these deep, long throws that you would find in judo, for example. We're sitting up, the line is vertical. We're stay upright as much as possible. This is also found in our basic posture, right? We're trying to connect the crown of the head through the perineum into the foot. This is good Qigong. It's good Tai Chi, and we're here. I think I mentioned before that this is not a hard rule. It's not that we're never going to go, past the center line. It's not that the hips are always going to be level. We have all these moves where we're down here and we move, but we're always coming back towards the center line, going back towards that vertical. Remember, there's 5 directions, right? Forward, back, to the right, to the left, and then central equilibrium. So central equilibrium is a crucial part. It's one of the 5 directions. It's mentioned literally, so we know it's important, right? It's that vertical line. We know it's important in Taoist meditation. We know it's important in Qigong in terms of energy flow. There's the Tai Chi pillar. It's literally one of the 8 extraordinary meridians is there. It's that vertical line. So we know it's important. So that line, that vertical line, is also important in everything that we do in the form, and especially in terms of application, or especially if you're doing push hands, because that vertical line is not just going through the body and controlling the up and down. It's also controlling right and left, right? Because you're pivoting around that vertical line. And again, I was talking about before how everything starts with the feet. So if I want to move the body, I move the feet. Now, why do I want to do that? Because if I don't move the feet and I want to turn, now one thing that happens is that now I'm overextending and my shoulders start crossing that vertical line, because that line is also that plane, right? So that dimension that exists between myself and my opponent. So if I'm here, I want to make sure that my right shoulder doesn't cross that plane. I want to make sure that my left shoulder doesn't cross that plane, because every time I do, I'm closing off the body. And you can feel how this is much weaker than this. And this, again, it goes back to all the core basic principles that we have. We're going to go back to the basic posture, right? So I'm here, my back is rounded. My back is rounded, meaning my shoulder blades are flat against my back. By doing that, it means I connect my shoulder to my back, so my arm is connected to my shoulder, it's connected to my back connected to the hips, connected to the feet, right? So that whole chain is there. Because I have the rounded back, I have the connected shoulder. If I'm here, and then I cross my arm this way, now my shoulder is disconnected from my back. I've overextended my shoulder joint, so I've lost the connection between my hand and my foot. So I want to keep my hand here, which is why I'm going to use my feet to move. All right, I'm going to use my feet so that my hands always stay essentially along the correct plane. They never cross in front. And this is where we see in the form itself that one of the techniques that we use all the time is making our opponent cross their center line. So drag down, right? What's this? My hand comes here in front of my center line, but I'm controlling my opponent's elbow. So if I'm here and I have their elbow, that means their arm is going this way. I've just made I've made their arm, by pushing on the elbow, cross their center line, which means that now not only can you can't punch, right? Because I'm closed. As here I can punch, here I can't, because my own arm is in the way, and I'm structurally, I'm unsound structurally. So I'm going to cross my opponent's arm, but also now when I push, if I push across, because I've made my opponent cross their own center line, I've broken their own structure. So that now a push is much more effective, as opposed to if my opponent's arm is here and I push, well, they can resist. If I'm here, now it's much more difficult to resist, right? So we're going to make our opponent cross their center line all the time. That's going to be our technique. We see that again here, here, here. most explicitly at the end of the first one, after drag down, twist the joint, when we come here and brush and punch, this here, right? Controlling the arm, brushing it to the side. Again, so we're making somebody cross their own center line. It's something that's very useful in push hands, and something that you should train for in push hands is the habit of not crossing your own center line. Because in push hands, we're always like, oh yeah, we're pushing, pushing, pushing. And I see this all the time. You have people who come in and they're being pushed, and they're allowing themselves to be pushed across the center line. And then this all becomes very easy to push against. So what you want to do is make sure that if you're being pushed and across, either you brush, but you do everything in your power so that your shoulders, right, are not crossing the center line, right? And sometimes there's a difference between this and this. Here I'm open, here I'm closed. Here I can be pushed, here I can't, right? So this idea of the center line, central equilibrium, works in all these different directions. Vertically, right? It's the line that connects crown to foot and crown to the ground, but it's also then the line that goes through the body this way that you don't want to cross with your hand, but you want to make your opponent cross. And that's what we're constantly here. And notice though, drag down, the hand is here in front of that line. So we're playing with that line because that's how we make our opponent cross their line. Fist comes here, I turn, and I make them go that way so that their fist is going here across. It's protective because now it means that their rear fist can't be used to attack, but it also means that now I'm breaking their structure because I'm making them cross that line. So you want, in the form, right, you want to pay attention to that, and you can actually use that simple principle to start correcting your form. Grasp the sparrow's tail is here to here. It's not here, it's here, right? Because if I go here, that's it, I've crossed my own line, here. So now I know that grasp the sparrow's tail ends here, comes here. So my center line, my shoulders are never crossing that center line. I'm not breaking my own structure. It makes the form less, right? It's less this big movements and all that. It's a little smaller. It's a little more contained, but it's a lot more stable. And again, we're trying to get our opponent, to cross their center line. Boom, boom. As we do so, we come here, not here. This is incorrect, this is correct. Here, here, here. Brush. Notice that there's a lot of moments where we're swapping hands. I come here, swapping hands. The purpose of that is to make sure that we don't cross our own center line, right? Not only is it you're controlling, we're sticking, right? But we're sticking in a way where if I was here, I have my opponent's elbow. Well, if I want to punch, I have to push my opponent a little further that way so I can create space. If I do that, I'm crossing my own center line. So how do I push him further that way without crossing my own center line? I swap. Now I can brush that way, move him further this way, but I'm not crossing my center line, right? So all of these moves, all these sweeping moves here, where we're brushing, that's all so that you can maintain your own center line. You're breaking your opponent's center line, but you're maintaining your own. It's a really important idea. It's a very, very important structural element. And if you do any kind of wrestling or anything like that, even if it's not explicitly stated, implicitly you'll know. If you're wrestling, if you're pushing, the minute you're pushed this way, that's it, you're done, right? Because now your opponents have your shoulder and they can push you. You have to be here for the structure connects foot to hand to be correct. Here, structure is broken. Here it's not, right? So that center line needs to be maintained. It maintained for structure, maintained for energy flow, maintained, right, for proper alignment of the whole body. It's one of those crucial things, and you want to start catching yourself every time you close off and you break your own center line.